Mukesh Pandya from Mumbai, teach for competitive examinations. Pragati from Madhya Pradesh. May I know the level of students do you teach? UG students or post-graduation students? Dr. Ketan, good evening. UG students. Emotion recollecting from tranquility. Poetry. Nikat Banu ma'am, teaching Polytechnic College, teaching in Polytechnic College. Professor Shushila ma'am, teaching UG students and PG students. I hope your students also join this webinar. Prachna ma'am, teaching undergraduate students from Odisha. Good evening, Joy Peter sir, who is pursuing PhD. Are you a member of ELTAI? Joy Peter, are you a member of ELTAI? From Kerala? ELTAI Kerala? Dr. Shamila ma'am, teaching UG and PG students and PhD scholars, guiding PhD scholars. Good evening, Rajeshwari ma'am. As today's session is dominating with the female, I think most of the replies from female teachers and professors. Ratna Panigrahi, good evening. Good evening, sir. Welcome. Dr. Tanesh, good evening, sir. Where are you from? Assistant Professor, Crescent University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Welcome you, sir. UG students, anybody UG students who are studying undergraduation or post-graduation? Piyush Yadav, are you a UG student? Muskan Kacha and Piyush Yadav. Nitya K. Nair, good evening, ma'am, who is teaching literature to secondary school students. Message is scrolled up. I think Mangai ma'am's scholars were also here. Okay. Shaukat Ansari, Jashan Chopra is teaching undergraduate classes. Obviously, English literature, or language?
Shabreen ma'am,
Literature only. Yes, sir.
kindly go ahead with the general instruction to the participants. We will start in another 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. We have some instructions to be followed during this webinar session. Please post your questions in the chat box during the webinar. We encourage you to stay with us for the entire session. Certificates will be issued within 10 working days. And don't avoid sending email messages immediately after this webinar session to prevent delays. A feedback form will be shared at the end of the session. Please fill it out to get your certificates. Certificates are available to students, school, UG students, PG students, ELTAI professionals, ELTAI members, and foreign nationals. Check your inbox and spam folder for the certificate email. Keep a copy of this confirmation email certificate for further verification. We invite the research scholars to join with us, ELTAI member. We invite non-members to join ELTAI to access the information for professional development and as well as network, a strong peer network. Please follow these instructions to run this session smoothly. Once you fill out the feedback form, keep a copy of email certificate with you for further verification. Certificate will be issued within 10 working days. We encourage the PhD research scholars to join ELTAI. Sajni Khanna, good evening. Pramod Deep, good evening. Please post the questions in the chat box. During the session, please post the questions in the chat box. TH Lawrence, where are you from? Dear participants, please post the questions in the chat box during the webinar session.
Okay, Shabreen ma'am, it's 4:30 now.
Yes, sir.
Good to go.
Yes, sir. Once again, good evening, everyone. I feel honored to welcome you all to ELTAI Webinar 128, brought to you by English Language Teachers Association of India, a community where passionate educators like us come together to share, collaborate, and innovate among English language professionals. My name is Shabreen, and I will be your host for this exciting session today. Today's topic, doing poetry, a way to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. Together, we will uncover how poetry can be a transformative tool, a medium that empowers us to connect and reflect, not just as a teacher, but as a language enthusiast and someone who is very curious about the magic of poetry. This session promises to spark a new ideas that will leave a lasting impact. Before we dive into this exciting session, let's take a moment to explore the vibrant world of ELTAI. Whether you are the new to our community or a long-term member, this short video will highlight the incredible initiatives and activities that ELTAI make to become the beacon of inspiration for all educators everywhere. Let's play video.
Yes, ma'am. And good evening, all. We have launched our new logo in the last conference. I want to just to show the logo video, and we will proceed with the promo video.
Wasn't that inspiring? ELTAI's commitment to empowering English language educators across India is truly commendable. Before we begin, here are a few points that you have to ensure for this webinar run smoothly. Once again, I just reminding, please post your questions in the chat box during the webinar session. We encourage you to stay with us for the entire session. Certificates will be issued within the 10 working days. Please avoid sending the email messages immediately after the webinar session is ended. Friends, to oversee this discussion, we have a moderator. Let me take this opportunity to introduce our today's moderator for this webinar. I am delighted to introduce our moderator for today's session, Dr. Padmini Mane, who is currently serving as an assistant professor in English at Naurajji Wadia College, Pune. Dr. Mane has a wealth of teaching experience spanning over 15 years. She is recognized PhD research guide at Savitribai Phule Pune University, with 4 students currently pursuing their research under her guidance. Additionally, she serves as a member of the Board of Studies, contributing to curriculum development and academic excellence. An accomplished researcher and writer, Dr. Mane has published numerous articles and presented papers at international conferences, including one in Bangkok. Her contribution extends to editorial responsibilities, workshops on women's holistic development, and many more. Now, without further ado, let me hand over the session to our moderator for today. Over to you, Dr. Padmini ma'am.
Thank you, Shabreen ma'am. A very good evening to all the respected teachers, professors, participants, and students. Before we actually begin the session, I would be talking about poetry. I would be giving a brief introduction of our resource person for today, and then we will begin with the session. Poetry, as defined by William Wordsworth, the Romantic poet, is a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings recollected in tranquility. Poetry is literature that evokes a concentrated imaginative awareness of experience or a specific emotional response through language chosen and arranged for its meaning, sound, rhythm. Length, structure, language, emotional expression, aesthetic qualities make a poem different from other genres of literature. It's important to study poetry for its creativity, for the new horizons that poetry gives us, for literacy, for understanding emotions, as it helps to learn about people and about who they are. On the other hand, teaching poetry is always a pleasure because it allows us to express ourselves. It helps in building reading skills, developing empathy, developing speaking skills and listening skills, apart from building confidence. Poetry is an art form that uses rhyme, rhythm, meter, and beauty of language to evoke emotions in the reader. Poetry is important because it helps us to understand and appreciate the world around us. Let us together understand how doing poetry, a way to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, with our resource person for today, Dr. Pronema Bagchi. I'm delighted to introduce our resource person for today. Dr. Pronema Bagchi is an assistant professor of English at the Faculty of Arts, Communication and Indic Studies, Sri Sri University, Cuttack, Odisha, India. She is a passionate educationist, an enthusiastic researcher, and a graceful dancer. She was awarded the doctorate degree in the field of English language and literature at the age of 27 and published her first book, Doing Poetry, to acquire communicative competence at the age of 28. At the age of 29, she became a research guide for English at MIT World Peace University, Pune, India. Her earnestness for research has allowed her to cook up titles for multiple conference presentations and delve deeper into discoveries with every new paper publication. Dr. Bagchi has conducted and has been a jury member for various elocution, debate, and oratorical competitions. She accepted the Outstanding Researcher Award in English given by the Third International Academic and Research Excellence Awards in the year 2021. She has also conducted several training workshops for teachers on teaching innovatively. She has published more than 23 research papers till date. She has become an established anchor of several university events both in Pune and Bhubaneswar. She believes in a perfect blend of curricular and extracurricular activities with an aim to fine-tune holistic education among diverse learners. Ma'am, I hand over the session to you. We are all eager to listen to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that amazing introduction and setting the context for this webinar. I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you so much for the confirmation. So, good evening, namaste, hello, and to all our dear participants who have joined us from different places of the world in different time zones. Hi, thank you so much for joining this interesting webinar. As ma'am said, that this is going to be a different webinar where we will try and explore the dynamics of doing language through literature. So, at the outset, let me say that I am super excited for this interaction because I don't see this as a one-way communication. And before we start, I would be asking a lot of things. And as I said, it's an interaction. I will be expecting our dear participants to interact. So just to confirm, do we all have access to the chat? I may not be able to hear everyone, but I think we all have access to the chat because I can see some amazing messages coming in the chat. So I will really request you to please be writing so that I can get your responses, if not in the spoken, for the written mode. Apart from that, if I feel the need that I would like to listen to some people in the middle of the presentation, I will request my team members to give the microphone access to some, of course, if you volunteer and raise your hand for that. So these were just a few things to begin with. And as I said, we are very soon going to start with an interaction. So I am very much eager to have this interaction with y'all. And it's a conversation in which all of us are going to participate. At the outset, I would also like to thank ELTAI for giving this opportunity. And again, before we actually start, let me just confirm, is my screen visible in the full screen mode? Like, is my PPT visible in the full screen mode?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. So let me start by saying, I hear, and I forget. I see, and I remember. I do, and I understand. Right? So this is a very, very beautiful quote given by Confucius long back, which adds a lot of value to our actions, where by just hearing or seeing, we may register but not understand, but by doing something, we really absorb it in toto. So, with this, here I am, Dr. Pronema Bagchi, Assistant Professor of Faculty of Arts, Communication and Indic Studies from Sri Sri University, Odisha, with the topic doing poetry, a way to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. Well, the reason why I selected this topic for our interaction today is because I have been interacting with quite a few students as well as professors, teachers who say that yes, literature is a dynamic field, but when it comes to teaching literature in the classroom, students are a little afraid. Now, if it is a novel, if it is a short story, sometimes even enacting a play, there is a lot of enjoyment. But the moment you declare, let's do a poem today, majority of the students are not very comfortable. Now, this is a general observation which I'm sure my dear participants would second and would support, because it's not an observation coming from one classroom or two classrooms. It's also a research that was carried out by Hirvela and Boyle, though in 1988, but still stands true. They tried to chart the interest of the students, and they floated a simple questionnaire to the second year UG students, asking that how many of them enjoy different genres of literature, in which 44% of students enjoyed reading novels, 43% short stories, 7% drama, and only 6% enjoyed doing poetry. So now, friends, what exactly is doing poetry? And why is it so that our students, or our target group, as we call it in technical terms, is not very comfortable with this form of literature? What really is needed to do more? Let us explore together. Now, if you ask me, literature is a dynamic form which always is in some kind of conversation, right? Be it the author with the text, or the text with the author, or the text with the reader, or the author with the reader through the text, and vice versa. So there is definitely some kind of communication happening through literature. Now, if you think of communication per se, in our real lives, is there a struggle to find certain outlets of communication? Do we really strive to put our point across? Most often, whenever we are trying to say something, does it always get comprehended in the best possible manner? Well, uh, again, here there is a very interesting point made by one of the most studious and a very, very noteworthy scholar in the field of literature and language studies, who has really given his life for finding how language and literature can be done together in an innovative manner. And he is none other than Brumfitt. Brumfitt actually tries to highlight this situation, that is literature caught or taught? Is literature caught or taught? Now, that is a question which definitely bothers each one of us as teachers. The reason why I have put up this question in front of all is, if we together as a community are trying to get our points across, are somewhere finding it difficult to communicate, how can we ensure that the literary texts can best be communicated? And if it is one particular genre of literature, which is poetry, how can we get a literary response from our learners? How best can we ensure that poems are not caught or taught in the classroom, but are done innovatively in such a way that there is some kind of a literary response coming from our students, which enhances the communication in toto, right? For this, I would like to have an activity. Now, I think I will stop sharing the screen for a while, because I want to go back to the chat and I want to see what our dear participants are answering. Well, how many of you have some kind of a favorite pastime activity? Can you just write it in the chat? What is your favorite pastime activity? Like, we can be precise so that we can have each and every participant answering. Oh, wow, lovely. Some like to write poems, some like to write novels, some like to read books, some like to sketch, some like to cook. Interesting, interesting. Oh my God, now I'm getting a lot and lot of replies. That's amazing. Well, do you like bird watching? How many of you like bird watching as a hobby or as a favorite pastime activity? Thank you so much for all these replies. But okay, Jasmeet ji, Shrima ji, Ashwini ji, Ritu ji, Mukesh ji, and the list continues. A lot of you like to watch birds. Lovely. If you like to go and spend time in the garden and do bird watching, can someone tell me which is your favorite bird? And do you find time out from your busy schedule to actually go in the garden and just watch the beauty of that bird? Yes, yes. Some of you love to explore nature, as I can see in the chat. My God, the chat is full of replies. Some of you like myna, some dove, some sparrow, some parrots, woodpeckers, pigeons. Oh God, now this list is never ending. Well, well, well. Okay, thank you so much for all this. You can still keep replying. But now let's quickly do an activity. What is this activity? This activity has two parts. The first part is listening with eyes closed. All right. What is the first part of this activity? Listening with eyes closed. So now we are all going to close our eyes and just listen to something. I will not start sharing my screen until and unless the first part is over. The second part of the activity is listening with eyes. Am I making a mistake? No, not really. I'm not making a mistake. It's a purposeful deviance. Here, we will try to absorb something through both our senses. Okay. So, are we ready for the first and the second part of the activity? Let's do it honestly so that we can enjoy and feel whatever is coming up next. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for all the yeses and replies. Let's close our eyes. Eyes closed, please, all the participants. And let's just feel the lines in each and every word. Okay. He clasps the crag with crooked hands. He clasps the crag with crooked hands, close to the sun in lonely lands, close to the sun in lonely lands, ringed with the azure world, ringed with the azure world, he stands. The wrinkled sea beneath him crawls. He watches from his mountain walls, and like a thunderbolt, he falls. And like a thunderbolt, he falls. Okay, now the second part of the activity. Let us start. I'll just request Kevin sir to quickly confirm if my screen is again visible, if my PPT is again visible in the full screen mode. Kevin sir, is it visible in the full screen mode?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, thank you. He clasps the crag with crooked hands. Friends, we are in the second part of the activity, which is listening with eyes. So I'll request all of you to please keep your eyes open, wide open, in fact. He clasps the crag with crooked hands, close to the sun in lonely lands. Ringed with the azure world, he stands. Ringed with the azure world, he stands. The wrinkled sea beneath him crawls. He watches from his mountain walls, and like a thunderbolt, he falls. Well, this was a poem, The Eagle by Lord Alfred Tennyson. And I actually would now like to listen to a few of our participants. Kevin sir, is that possible? Hello? Are there volunteers who would like to just quickly, in a sentence or two, share their experience regarding what was it when they experienced and witnessed the lines with eyes closed, and what really came up when the second part of the activity unfolded, that is listening with eyes? Are there any volunteers who would like to share their experiences? Especially, did you make any guess when you were witnessing the first part of the activity? And did your guess come out correct when you experienced the second part of the activity? Can you please raise your hands? Are there any volunteers who would like to quickly share their experiences in a sentence or two? Kevin sir, if there are one or two hands raised, can you give them mic access, please? I would love to listen to them. Hello?
Yes, ma'am, I gave the access.
Okay, okay. Sir, if you can please take their names so that they are aware that they have got the access and they can unmute and speak.
Just a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Indra Nala, Ritu Agarwal.
Okay. Rituji. Rituji, hi. Am I audible? Rituji, hi. Am I audible? Can you please unmute yourself?
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Yes, you are
Hi,
audible.
am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you are.
yes.
So, ma'am,
Yeah. I
can
just
you please
thank
quickly
you
share
so
your
much.
experience?
Yeah, my experience was wonderful. In the first part, in fact, I felt that you were talking. This poem is about a lonely man, a very
Oh,
old lonely man,
I see.
because I was visualizing, I had my own visualization, whereas in the second part, it totally changed. And I was focusing more on the sounds, like
Wow.
claps and all that,
Wow.
falling, all those things. Whereas in the second part, the visualization itself was there. So that was enough there.
Thank you so much, Rituji. So, one important takeaway from Rituji's sharing of experiences, visualization. Okay, second volunteer, Kevin, sir, please.
Thank you,
take-
ma'am.
Yeah, welcome. Please.
Jayalakshmi. Jayalakshmi. Yes.
Hi,
Hi,
Yes.
ma'am.
it's good to hear about this here, and so nice watching you. The first part of the exercise, I was more, I was sort of observing or hearing the sound, and that,
Okay.
yeah, the sound was so dominant. And
Hmm.
I never thought of an eagle. I swear, I never thought of an eagle. I thought of
Oh,
I thought of a huge, a man who was
uh-huh.
gnarly and probably old. This is what I thought of, and the eagle really took me by surprise. Thank you for this exercise.
Thank you so much. Okay, I wish I would have time to, listen to each one of your experiences, because I now am really surprised, because what I wanted to get or elicit from y'all, it's just there and it is so evident. So, well, now the reason why I have asked this question is, have you experimented with your communication techniques? See, my dear friends, communication is something which is very dynamic. I keep saying that. No doubt it is a basket of listening, speaking, reading, writing, grammar, vocabulary skills, all put together, and there's a mesh of everything happening in a magical way. But this is what communication is like. When we visualized something, an image comes up. But the moment we try to see or corroborate our visualization with the image that is in front of us, coming from the screen, we are taken by surprise. So that's what exactly is there in front of your screen. Isn't communication full of surprises? Yes, it is. And that's what poetry does. Poetry too takes each one of us by surprise. What I tried to do is I simply tried to build some context across the poem, right? I asked questions like, what is your favorite pastime activity? Do you like bird watching? Do you find time to go in the garden and watch birds? Which is your favorite bird? And see, even after doing this, luckily, the moment we started with the first phase of the next activity, no one thought that whatever I was reciting could even slightly be related with a bird. Right? Everyone's visual, and some of you might have visualized. I didn't have time to speak to each one of you, unfortunately, but some of you might have, but most of you were visualizing something nice, something innovative, and all those things can be taken in the same way in a classroom where it all feels like a process of communication, a part of communication. Let us not demarcate poetry to be a text in black and white. That is my humble request with joint hands. It is life. It is a living soul. And the teacher's job is to breathe life in the poetic text. It can definitely happen with such activities. Why? Because we are not teaching poetry. We are no one to teach poems. We are no one to teach poetry or any form of literature for that matter. We can only do literature and we can only do poetry in the classroom. So when you do something, there's a lot of dynamism attached. And the moment you are convinced first as a teacher and make your students convinced with the fact that communication is full of surprises, how much ever you practice, you cannot sound rehearsed when you're communicating, right? Today also, see, the moment we started interacting, nothing was rehearsed. I asked a question, you came up with some response, and I also was surprised that, oh, your visualization was something totally different. And now, if you want to make this whole activity more interesting, think how else can you stretch this ahead with language games. So, what can be another experiment of sorts with poetry so that the students get the feel of doing poetry? Now, the moment you said that, I imagined something huge. Okay. Now, I will say, picking this word from the students, that, oh, all of you were visualizing something huge. The sounds were so stark because your sense was totally concentrated on one sensory organ, which is listening. So you thought that there's something huge standing in front of you. Let me introduce another adjective for this word huge. Let me say magnificent. Magnificent. And this is an adjective which will go well with the bird in the poem. So how is the eagle? It is a magnificent eagle. Now, can you think of more adjectives? How much ever we ask this, my dear friends, you all know that the students will not still be triggered with a lot of replies. How do you trigger that? You convert it into a language game. Play an adjective antakshari. See, we all love to play antakshari, but how about adjective antakshari? I introduce the adjective magnificent, and then the next student gives me an adjective with the last letter of the first word. So magnificent ends with T. The first student, come on, give me an adjective with T. The student tells tall. Okay, next, give me an adjective with L. The student says lovely. Okay, give me an adjective with Y. The student says, wait, even colors are adjective, right? So yellow. Okay, give me an adjective with W. And then wide. And see, this is how you also keep enlarging the corpus of vocabulary that is being discussed in the classroom related to the text. See which adjectives that are coming up in the class suit best to the subject of the poem, right? You usually have such questions: what is the theme of the poem, who's the speaker, so on and so forth. But there is something which actually keeps revolving around the subject of the poem. So here the eagle is the subject. And how many adjectives can we collect from this adjective antakshari, which can best relate with the subject of the poem. So here, what is happening, my dear friends? We are doing something with the language, right? Through literature. Poetry is providing the best platform to do something with words, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, nouns, pronouns, and you can think of many more such activities. I'm sure if we all come together and brainstorm as teachers, I think we can frame a basket and bucket full of activities which can be implemented in our classrooms. So, well, let me quickly move on to the next example. Uh, I think most of us would be aware of this poem, and it is one of our favorite poets who has written it, Robert Frost, right? Robert Frost says, nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Okay, here I would like to again stop sharing my screen for a second and ask you to give me a title to this text. Can you all think of a title to this text? Well, Frost does it in a very simple way. He just takes the first line of the poem and titles it as Nothing Gold Can Stay. But I really don't want y'all to do that. I know y'all are very creative. Y'all can go ahead with your imaginative prowess. And that's what I'm now getting. See, the chat is full of amazing titles. Impermanence, nurturing nature, life is transient. Wow. Nothingness, nature's panorama, nature's green. What else? What else? Well, I'm getting some interesting replies. Setting sun. Wow, lovely. See, there's a lot of golden hues that comes into the picture. Amidst nature, reflections, day to dawn. Wow, or dawn to dusk, something like that. See, even I am getting some amazing titles because of your suggestions in the chat. Well, interesting, interesting. Quite a few suggestions that I have got. Similarly, Nature and Ecstasy. Wow, Sheetal ma'am, love this title. Ephemeral World, RCG. What a title. Nature Beyond Life. Lakshmi Kanji, excellent. I wish I could listen to all of you. Well, there's always a paucity of time. There is another activity that we all can do. When we have short poems, see, the first poem was just of 6 lines. This poem is hardly of 8 lines. But sometimes these 6 lines, these 8 lines become so dense that we really don't know what to do next. Another interesting activity that can be done, it's all about doing poetry, right? And making people feel comfortable with the uncomfortable. So another interesting activity is you can ask your students to compose an alternative ending to the poem. How does the poem end? It ends with, so dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. Well, at the surface level, this might give some negative connotation. But I really do not want a poem to end with a negative connotation. I want it to end with a positive connotation. So I want it to end with a ray of hope. And then I can ask, okay, Venkat Krishna ji. Kevin sir, I request you to please give access to Venkat Krishna ji. Let him try and access his microphone. And sir, I would request you to please try composing an alternate ending to this poem.
Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes, may I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
Yes, ma'am. I'm very happy to listening to your explanation, ma'am, because I like to teach poems, ma'am. I'm a school teacher, but
Oh,
actually,
these all poems I have purposely selected from the school syllabus. You might have observed.
yes, ma'am. Actually, I didn't remember exactly what is in the text,
Okay.
but
Okay, the
anyhow,
last line is nothing gold can stay. Can you give me an alternative to this? Nothing gold can stay.
Yes, ma'am.
Others can type it in the chat, by the way. Nothing gold can stay.
I will type in another sentence like you are mentioned, ma'am.
Sure, please. Now, I have already started getting some replies. Everything gold. Wait, let me access. Everything gold. Everything is gold if you wish that way. Wow, Rituji, amazing. Gold stays, people don't. Jude Fernandez ji, interesting. And so are the moments of pain that turns to ray of joy with morning glow. Wow. See, this is what happens, and I think we can easily convert this into a paired activity, right? We can, like, for example, Venkat Krishna ji and Ritu ji. Let's say both of them are like a group of two people working on the alternative ending. They can compose 2 lines or 4 lines or 6 lines that can automatically give a different tone. And this is how you can also discuss tone of the poem. See, this is another question that our students are afraid to answer. What is the tone of the poem? So first, make students realize that when you listen to nothing gold can stay, how does it feel? Let them say not very good, ma'am, negative. So then you make them realize that yes, exactly, this is a negative tone. But how do you convert it into a positive tone? Instead of, forcing our answers on our students, instead of giving a full stop to their imagination, let their imagination flourish. You give them an activity where they can come up with alternative endings and think more creatively and continue understanding the beauty of these lines, of these words. See, our aim is the same. We just want our students to enjoy doing poetry in particular and doing literature in general, right? So let us then convert these questions, the mundane questions, into something interesting. Nothing gold can stay, but life's love shines like ray. Oh my God. I think your name is written in Bangla. Unfortunately, I can't read Bangla. Sorry for that. But I love this alternative ending that has come in the chat. Well, I wish I could again continue, but I have to rush. So let us go back to the presentation and see what more examples are there where we can work together. And I will keep asking you to write your replies in the chat in the same way. Okay. Again, Kevin sir, just a quick confirmation. Is the PPT visible in the full screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So now, when we see our textbooks where we have poetry, be it school, be it high school, be it college, undergraduate, postgraduate level, there are some comprehension questions which are again very cliched. Like, for example, if you ask something like, what is nature's first green? When does that usually happen? Yeah, you can easily say the first green is gold and that happens in dawn. But again, if people have not really understood the concept or the contrast between dusk and dawn, how will they appreciate this? The second line means it's hard for things to stay that way. Why do you think he says that? See, my dear friends, we cannot ask our students to simply answer this either in the classroom or as a part of their homework, right? I know we all are struggling to finish the syllabus and we mostly give these answers as homework and we say comprehension questions, ghar se karke lana. Now, I know all the limitations and let's not go into that. How are we going to deal with it? We all have our own ways to deal with it. And I'm sure all teachers try to do that in the best possible way. But let's not just keep this aside. This is an important activity where the students' critical thinking skills can be developed. Yes, poetry is another best medium to develop the critical thinking skills of our students. If they are not trained to appreciate something to the fullest, how will they be expected to critique something and come up with reviews, right? So for that, you can also have certain other activities. Now, very simple. If you have contrasting ideas, usually contrasting ideas are juxtaposed together in metaphysical poems or even modern poems. So what do? You simply take the images, place it in front of your class, ask the students to appreciate dawn, to appreciate dusk. So now, as you can see in your screen, you understand that, okay, when it comes to dawn and dusk, there is some kind of similarity, though they are contrasting ideas, though they are opposites, but as far as the similarity is concerned, they are meeting with the concept of transience. There is some kind of transition or change happening at dawn and at dusk. So this is one point of appreciation that the students learn to do. And I had done this with one of my batches. And I asked students to just pen down that what does dusk connote to them and what does dawn connote to them. So after explaining dusk and dawn through these images and having some kind of discussion, just the way we did, see the brilliant replies that students came with. These are not my points, my dear friends. Please note this. These are the points that students came up with. So for dusk, students thought that it's end of the day, end of an era, passing of time and characters evolving, rest, going home, expectation for new beginnings, sandhya, fruitful conclusion, creativity, peace, innovation, and on and on and on. I myself was surprised that they came up with such brilliant connotations. When I asked them about dawn, they said fresh beginning, hope, new things, implement new things, execute your me time in a different way. See, this was something really special. Meditation, concentration, focus. Yeah, because the moment you get up, nowadays schools, colleges are also trying to train the students to come up with some meditation, concentration practices, which is like amazing. So this is what is expected. I think once we make our students understand the value of appreciating multiple connotations, we can very well convince our students that poetry is not about one interpretation. It is about multiple interpretations, as many minds, as many interpretations, and we need to acknowledge all the different voices emerging from a poetic text. So now, moving to the other part of the presentation, do we still get such expressions or silent feedback from our students when we say that poems are easy? And have you witnessed these kind of expressions or replies, facial expressions especially, coming from your students when you try to do poetry in class? I just thought that let me try to have some hilarious incidents shared, not through any kind of anecdotes, but through little bit of visuals, so that you also relate. So obviously, when I was a student, I too went through these phases in different parts of my education career where I was not very comfortable with poems. I was not very comfortable doing poetry. First of all, I did not have this concept of doing poetry introduced. I just knew that there is something coming in front which is very difficult, and I have to decode that, and I don't know what will go wrong in my analysis, but still I have to answer some questions, write long answers, they have to be essay type, so on and so forth. And then see the last image that is in front of you on your screen to your bottom right. What students feel the poet meant is just the tip of the iceberg. Whereas when the English teacher says that, see, look beyond the words, read between the lines, because there's a lot more to the poem, and then the students go confused and they feel that, what are we doing? So it's time that we let our students come out of this discomfort and make them realize that It is something interesting. It is something enjoyable. It is something which you do in your pastime. For example, our students these days, Gen Z, love to create memes. Agreed or not? Well, I am not able to access chat right now. I cannot see the replies, but you all can please write. Do you agree? Yes or no? I think you can write a yes or no. Today's Gen Z are very much interested in creating memes. They are tech savvy and they love to create something which are full of punchlines and post it on Insta, make it in form of a story, come up with a YouTube story, right? So why don't we encash on those activities of theirs and get it in the classroom? Now, how do we do that? Well, now this is again a humble attempt to just convert a text by P.B. Shelley into something interesting. As time is really not going to wait for us, I really don't think I'll be able to now access chat or make you all speak. But please keep writing in the chat so that if I get time, I'll really go through your replies. Let me now read, and you all please try and concentrate on this meme that has been created. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert near them on the sand. Half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, the hand that mocked them, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, the king of kings. Look on my works, you mighty in despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Now, believe me, my dear friends, this is a meme created by a group of students fancying to do something like this. When they actually got introduced to this idea that a poem can be converted in the form of a meme, they immediately downloaded a meme app. I really don't remember the name of that app now. There is an app, by the way, to create memes. There are multiple apps. And then see how beautifully this rendition came across. Now, when this meme was projected in front of the class, the students could immediately relate, because I don't want to take names of any politicians that you right now see in front of your screen. I leave it to your discretion. It's very, very clear. You can decode the way you want, but there was a connect. There was an instant connect. And then students could feel that, yes, what decay does, and when kings come up with false pride and make tall claims, what really remains after time passes is what we see. So with this little bit of rendition, we can convert this into a brainstorming session or a very invigorating piece of GD, that is a group discussion. The title can be simple, Time and Tide Wait for None, or Time is the Greatest Leveler. Now, students are usually asked to write 500, 900, 1,500 word essay on these topics. But in that case, if you take this poem, make the students work on some interesting facts, let them create some memes and convert the poem into a meme, and then conduct this GD in the classroom, see what happens. I am saying this out of first-hand experience. It is a miracle, because the moment students get connected and feel that there is a reference, it is definitely not outdated, it is related to our times, and we can feel this. The examples that they share are really amazing, because our students are very updated. They keep reading, they know a lot of facts, they know the everyday happenings, the phenomena. So they can then relate and come up with many points in the group discussion. So instead of just having a group discussion in the class, Poetry can again play a role there too. You can take up such poems that hit on the theme and then convert it into a group discussion, which is more relatable. Now, let me have the last text with all of you. Let me just read it, and then let me see what do you have to say about it. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstances, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond, beyond this place of wrath and tears, looms but the horror of the shade. And yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Well, since we are really falling short of time, I don't think I'll be able to listen to a lot of your replies. But let me quickly share. This is a poem by William Ernest Henley called Invictus. The moment I got this title, it was in one of the syllabi of UG. That time, Avengers was a rage. See, Avengers is still a rage, by the way. But one of its parts was doing rounds, and it's a series of movies, and our students go gaga over Avengers and their characters. But if students can best relate to those characters, why can't we talk about someone being the captain of the soul and having an unconquerable soul with the characters whom they look up to? If our students feel some connect with Avengers, why not create stories across them? This is nothing but a simple meme creating app which has tried to combine some famous characters, put them in a frame, and has picked up phrases from the poem which are very, very powerful, which need to be discussed, and which students have to think, mull over. That all has come together in a form of a different meme. Now, this is a serious meme. It's not a hilarious meme, but this is a meme which instantly finds connect with our target audience. And here, the title Invictus emerges really well. So then you can ask our students to come up with synonyms for Invictus, where the word Invictus itself can be discussed, and you can draw tree diagrams. There are language activities like coming up with lexical sets. So what are the associated words of Invictus coming from this text, right? Which can really help our target learners do something with language and literature. Therefore, trying to give my concluding remarks to all my dear participants, I personally feel poetry speaks and communication is purely poetic. Why? Because poetry is an art that needs a special kind of attention, and if poetry seems to be elusive, right, and unpredictably tough, then it is because of some practices. Well, it might be faulty, but sometimes we are not aware, we are just following the trend or fitting into the tradition, and it doesn't really go well with our learners. So it's the facilitator who has to think why students are not enjoying a particular genre and what can be done to convert that discomfort into a very comfortable experience. So there definitely has to be an application of some kind of methodology, right, in every kind of level: school, UG, PG. And as I say, it's not just about language or literature classes. Even if we are going for a soft skills class, let's not convert it into a dry, dull, monotonous session of making students write essays. Let us bring poetry in that classroom too and convert it into something interesting where students do something with the language. And people from different disciplines too can contribute by creating poetic texts related to different professions. Now, that is something which is a collaborative activity that I look up to as a future prospect, as something. I have an echo. Hello, Kevin sir, can you just look up to this? Maybe if you
Yes,
can
ma'am. Go ahead.
try
Go
to
ahead.
see this echo. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So here, I see this collaborative activity as a future prospect where some people from different professions can come together, collaborate, and we can do this research where small little poetic texts can be composed on different professions. And those can be introduced to, let's say, MBA students, BMS students who are doing Ayurveda, to law students who are pursuing BALLB or BBLLB or LLM for that matter, and different professions, and make the sharing of ideas more interesting. See, when I myself was doing my PhD, I thought it to be of a watertight compartment when there has to be a pre-teaching activity, a during teaching activity, and post-teaching activity. But after so many years, I myself have evolved over a period of time, and I think that classroom management is indeed a science. You cannot always have 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. You can also say 4, okay, 2 plus 2, 4. 5 minus 1 is also 4. 3 plus 1 is also 4. So it is all about your dynamic situation. As a teacher, you would know the best permutation and combination. Maybe for one particular poetic text, pre-teaching activity will not work. For another, the post-teaching activity will not be needed. For one text, both will not be needed, but what you do during the discussion of the text and how you take it ahead and how you navigate through the lines of the poem, that will be more important. So it's all about trial and error till you reach that hence proved point, which is totally going to come out of your own experiences. All we need to do is start. If we make that start and encourage our students to participate in doing something with the text, I am sure it's going to be a very, very healthy situation uh, of multitasking of sorts, but a session which both the stakeholders will enjoy for a fact. So thank you so much for giving a careful ear, and most importantly, thank you so much for your lovely replies. I enjoyed reading your answers in the chat. I wish I could listen to more of you because I'm sure you wanted to say something, speak, but I think now is the time when I will listen to you. So if you have any questions, comments, please go ahead, and I will be more than happy to answer to queries, if any.
Kevin, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So should I give my presentation or my feedback, and then we can go for the question answer session?
Okay, ma'am. It's already time. Make it brief for 1 to 2 minutes. Then
Yes,
we'll take
yes.
almost 4 to 5 questions.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Pronema Bagchi. I will just read out some of the replies that we got during your session, since you were not able to read them, and then I'll just give a brief view of the session. A productive session, a resourceful session, a very nice session, excellent PPT, enlightening session, exemplary way of teaching and learning poetry. Yes, ma'am, it was indeed a wonderful, innovative way of doing poetry, I would say. And you started with the meaning of doing poetry, as was stated by Confucius, and how poetry, when you compare it with other genres, was not as was done by research, as was shared by research. for the undergraduate students in the second year, that they only 6% of the students enjoyed or learning poetry or studying poetry. Ma'am delved and also explored the meaning of literature and how communication is a struggle. At the same time, ma'am also looked into the difference between whether poetry should be taught or should be caught, and how we can move away from this and beyond this. Ma'am also spoke about different kind of activities, whether it was the adjective antakshari or the activity where, I think it was, yes ma'am, it was a very, very interesting activity where the eagle poem, where we actually had a different meaning when we were listening to the poem, and we got a very different meaning when the words were before our eyes. That was a very innovative way of doing poetry, and the different interpretations that came from the audience about a lonely man. Yes, that was also something very interesting to listen to, and how communication is a very dynamic process, and it's a mesh of experiences. And ma'am also looked into the pre, the during, and the post-teaching activities that can come up, depending upon the target audience, and also depending upon which poem is being taught and is to be discussed in the class. Dr. Pronema Bagchi also emphasized on the importance of students, or building the students' critical thinking, and how that can be, what are the activities that can help to build the critical thinking of the students, considering that this is a tech savvy generation that can actually be utilized for developing these things. And we can also encash on this students' ability to think innovatively. Considering this generation is exposed to a lot many things, we can definitely encash on those activities, on that ability of the students. And in the end, Dr. Pronema Bagchi also emphasized on the role of the facilitator. So everything is the students are also important, the poem was also important, but in the end, I think the role of the facilitator is equally important to choose which strategy is important for that particular poem. So should a is a pre-discussion important, is a post-discussion important, which activity suits which poem, because I think everything cannot be applied to every poem. So that is, in this sense, the role of the facilitator is very important to choose what fits well, and accordingly that should be chosen and gone ahead with the poem.
Thank you. That was a wonderful summing up. I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yes, ma'am. We can take some questions.
Sure, ma'am. I'm waiting for those actually.
Yes, ma'am. I request our participants to post the questions in the chat box, so ma'am can definitely answer a few questions that permits our time.
I think I have received one question already, where the question is, I would like to live in poetic world, nourishing with nutritious poetry. How can I? Well, that was a nourishing question, actually. So, actually, this is a very insightful question, I would say. Let me see if I can read the name. It comes from Sheikh Rahmatullah Ji. Thank you so much. It has given me a new insight into how poetry can nourish us. Wow, lovely. Yes, poetry can indeed nourish us and give us the nutrition that is needed. Now, what kind of nutrition? Well, it actually is listening skills. In the first activity, did you see how some people enjoyed listening to the first poem and concentrated only on the sounds when we did the first phase of the activity, listening with eyes closed? Then speaking skills, how you can talk about your ideas and imagination and visualization in the part 2 of the activity. Reading and writing, undoubtedly, because when you read, between the lines, when you're trained to read between the lines and write about your reviews, analysis, that enhances and nourishes the experience altogether.
Ma'am, a few questions have come up.
Yeah.
How can meter becomes a hindrance while teaching poetry? How can we resolve it? A question from the audience.
Well, these days we see there's a lot of free verse coming in. So sometimes meter may become a hindrance, but if taught in the right way, then I feel meter can never be a hindrance. See, because the charm of the poetry is rhyme and rhythm. The moment you start enjoying the meter, it definitely helps students understand. Now, if there is a confusion, what you can do is introduce claps, okay? Claps or beats in the class. So you can ask students to tap or just thump the bench to understand what exactly the counting goes. So I took the dog for a walk in the park. When they understand how to like identify each and every beat and calculate the meter, the rhyme, the rhythm. So again, if we just experiment a bit with the taps, the claps, the thumps, then I think students will be able to talk about meter as well. So it is not something which restricts. It is definitely something which enriches.
I must say, ma'am, a very unique way of engaging students with this difficult concept of a meter. Another question which we can take is, how can we deal with critical theories in different ways than traditional way of teaching in the class? I think that's a critical related to critical theories. Rather, we'll go for another question.
Okay, but I think we can take this question some other day because it's a very interesting question.
Okay. Somebody has asked for some online online platform where short poems can be resourced, or where they can get any links for such poems, for short poems.
Okay. First of all, I think I would like to share a very important text with all my dear participants. I personally found this text very useful while doing my PhD, and you too will find it very resourceful. It is Teaching English Language Through Literature by N. Shanta Naik, published in the year 2011. I am pasting this in the chat for everyone to refer. I found this book very, very useful, and I hope you all have received my message in the chat. It is a storehouse of knowledge. Please read this book, and I'm sure while reading this, you will get 10 or 50 more references, which will give you many such ideas. Yeah.
We can take one last question, considering
Sure.
the time limit.
The name of the book is in the chat. Please refer to the chat. I have pasted it in the chat for everyone's reference.
Can we have any question?
I think, ma'am, I have received this question where someone has asked how modern poetry is essential to our secondary school. I would really love to answer this. How modern poetry is essential to secondary school. Well, modern poetry is extremely essential because, first of all, there's a lot of experimentation happening with the language, and students may get a little intimidated, but again, if done with the right method, which will be your own experiment, you can make students enjoy the language of modern poetry. And since secondary school students these days are well informed about whatever is happening as a part of popular culture, I will request you to please get references from different zones of world literature. Do not restrict to just UK or US. You can get something from African Caribbean. You can add pop music. I remember Othello being performed in the form of rap. There were beats, and it made the dark, gory, heavy text Othello so enjoyable and relatable that students understood the story in like 3 minutes. So when it comes to modern poetry, please celebrate it in the classroom. Let students enjoy it with some music, with some different perspectives from world literature, be it South Asian part of the world or Indo-African. Let those perspectives come into the class and celebrate poetry under the larger framework of multiculturalism, because modern poetry does relate to multicultural voices. So you'll be able to acknowledge many voices and make our students in the secondary school level sensitive towards many voices, right? I hope I have done my bit in answering that question. Well, I really don't know whether I'll be able to justify answering all the other questions that are still popping in the chat, but I think I will request my team to take those questions, collate it, and send it to me so that whenever possible, I can just try replying in my own way, because there's absolutely no time left. However, I'm giving my email address in the chat so that if anyone would like to connect with me in person, is most welcome to. My email address is bakchipronema@gmail.com. I have pasted in the chat for everyone's reference. You can surely connect with me in person. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Questions are many. Time is a paucity. Yes, considering this, I also thank ma'am, and I use Antakshari, not the exact adjectives Antakshari, but yes, your session was excellent, interesting, innovative, and unique. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and for sharing your experience, for sharing the various methods of doing poetry with our audience, with our active listeners, with our students, with our participants, with our teachers also. And with this, I would like to hand over the session to our host, Dr. Shabreen. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Pronema ma'am, congratulations for your productive session. You have really shown us how the literature can be used in the ELT classroom by reflecting the learning styles of auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learners to engage among all in the classroom. Thank you very much, ma'am. On behalf of ELTAI, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our distinguished guest speaker for her time and insight and interactive session. I thank Dr. Padmini Mane, ma'am, for moderating the session and offering your expert remarks. I also would like to thank you for summarizing the session and handling the Q&A session. Well, behind the scene, there is a dedicated team and work tirelessly to ensure the success of ELTAI webinars. I thank Dr. Rahul R. Kale for his valuable and timely input. A special thank to Kavin, a backbone of the organizing team, for his hard work and commitment of organizing these webinars. And last but certainly not least, a heartfelt thank you to our participants from abroad and of course all corners of India. Your active participation, questions and insights mark this webinar not just informative, but also a platform for rich discussion and global collaboration. Please don't forget to fill out the feedback form. Certificate will be issued only to school UG, PG students, ELTAI members, and foreign nationals. Ladies and gentlemen, before I wrap up, a few more announcements. Please mark your calendars and save the date for our next insightful ELTAI webinar on Sunday, December 22nd, 2024. We have a captivating session planned for you on topic of From Precis to Prompting, the Switch in ELT. Dr. Rani PL from Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Anantapur from Andhra Pradesh is going to deliver the talk. Can we have the poster for the next webinar? Registration details and additional information about the exciting webinar are available in the chat box and also on our website. Remember, your active participation is not only encouraged but essential to the success of our events. Let's continue our journey of professional development together. Now it's time for a photograph, group photograph. I request everyone to turn their videos on. Kevin sir.
Yes, ma'am. Say cheese.